Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders with Marketing Huddle, and today we're privileged to have with us Steve Blue, who is the CEO of Miller Ingenuity. Welcome to the program, Steve.
Thanks, Mike. It's a pleasure to be here.
Hey, so give me a little bit of background on Miller Ingenuity. I know that some of the buzzwords or word cloud words that I notice are, innovative and branding and things like that. But what is the focus of your firm?
Right. Well, Miller Ingenuity is a developer and a manufacturer of life safety systems in the transportation industry. We produce products that keep people from getting killed on the tracks and from getting killed on the train, employees generally, not trespassers and passengers. And so our entire focus in the last several years has been on how do we keep people from getting killed in the rail industry. You'd be surprised how many people get killed in the rail industry every year.
So
that's what we do.
Yeah, that's really interesting because that's a very niche. Like you said, not many people would realize that. So I'm sure that you see some unique trends that have been happening and that you can kind of look over the fence and see what are getting ready to happen. What are some of those thoughts that you're seeing?
Well, one of the things that we focused on, Mike, and sort of got into this particular line of products. If you look out you see the guys that are working on the side of the tracks whenever you're, going down the road, they're grinding. They have big machines out there. They're putting spikes in. They're putting in ties and all that kind of stuff. Well, about a dozen of them get killed every year. Because even though the rail industry has very specific rules and procedures you just don't walk on the track and start doing work. You have to have permission to be there. Dispatcher knows it. The guy in the locomotive is supposed to know. In spite of all those elaborate rules, a dozen people get killed every year. And the number wasn't going down, Mike. That's what got our attention as we looked in the last 10 years when they started putting in all these specific and more complicated rules designed to prevent that. The number wasn't going down, so it was just screaming, if you will, for an electronic solution, and that's the suite of products that we brought to the market. Very, very sophisticated electronic devices that basically warn these guys before the train ever gets there, and it gives them time to get off the track.
Yeah, almost like the new cars these days, which kind of alert you when you're getting too close to another car or someone's braking ahead of you. Yep. So that type of concept.
And that's the kind of thing, as you know, and your viewers and listeners know, you sort of look for trends out there of things that are happening or not happening that you can capitalize on. But in our case, we also look for trends that should be getting better, but they're not. And then the question that people should ask is, why aren't they getting better, and what can I do to make that get better?
Yeah, and when you're working with clients and companies in your firm, how are you able to have them do that? Because I think it sounds very easy to say that, but I think it's then hard to kind of put pen to paper or put that into the processes. What are you finding are some ways to make the point and then make them realize, okay, now we have to implement that point?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and particularly in an industry like the rail industry. It's very stodgy, very
traditional,
very traditional. We don't like to change anything. And, because they, quote unquote, are at least theoretically in the safety business, they're loath to make any changes that might make that situation worse. And the way you have to, and there's a lot of industries like that, so a lot of your listeners will have the same problem. You have to take a look at, and what we do, Mike, is we surround them. We go 360 degrees around them. And so we're lobbying with our congressman about safety solutions. We're using social media heavily, all the social media. We're promoting all of our products, brand awareness, if you will, on our website. And then of course we have a direct sales force that go out and talk with people directly. But I'll give you an example. We just targeted the California market. About a year ago, they made it a law that passenger rail operators must have an electronic solution to keep people from getting killed. So we started targeting that market with all the legislators, with the people who are in charge of the rulemaking, with, of course, the railroad operators themselves. with not only traditional advertising but also digital advertising and social media. And when you're in a situation where you're developing the market, because it hasn't yet fully developed, or it maybe hasn't even developed at all, as you know, it's a very expensive proposition, and it takes time. I would say, a good 1 to 2 years, maybe longer, depending upon the market you're trying to develop.
I was talking to someone just yesterday and learning about his target audience, and I asked him about his specific target audience and why he was so deep into Instagram. And at first blush, I asked him, it didn't seem like your audience was on Instagram, and why would you choose that? And he said, because I see where the industry is heading, and I know they're heading that direction. I already see clues of that, and when they finally arrive, I'm there and I've staked my claim. And I thought that was really intuitive, because it's kind of like Wayne Gretzky is known for saying, I skate where the puck is going, not where I'm seeing it right now.
Yep. That's a really good point, because you want to be. First isn't the best to be. I'm not sure what's second best. I'll give you a really good example of staking your claim, and I wrote about this in my upcoming book. Tito's Vodka. Are you familiar with them?
No.
Okay, well, Tito is a beverage manufacturer out of Texas, and oddly enough, the guy's name is Tito Beverage, and I'm not making this up. I'm not lying about it.
So he has to go into some type of a beverage industry.
Yeah. What else would he do? But he has his stake in the ground, and his brand awareness is that he has gluten-free vodka.
Ooh.
All right? Now, he claimed that brand position, if you will, 5 or 6 years ago, long before anybody was talking about gluten-free. And now, everybody's talking about gluten-free. Gluten-free restaurants, gluten-free products in the grocery stores. And guess what? Most vodkas are gluten-free.
Wow.
But he was the first one to stake that claim. And now, if you were to come along as Brand X vodka and try to start touting the fact that you're gluten-free, to be like, no, I already know that. That's Tito's.
Yeah.
That's a perfect example of staking your claim. This is what your other interview was talking about. Stake your claim first, and it's really hard for anybody to boot you out of that.
Well, that made me think of an interesting point that I've said over and over to clients, which is I think that we as business owners, entrepreneurs, managers, whatever you want to think of, in our day-to-day, we get so myopic about what we do. It's normal, right? And then every once in a while, we'll deliver that product or service to someone, and they just flip out, and they're like, this is the most amazing thing because, and they tell you, and you're like, oh, that's interesting because I just did what I always do, and you're raving because, and it's so unique. Well, I think we need to take that, Michael Gerber E-Myth, take time to work, on your business, not just in your business, and look at the different facets of what we do on a day-to-day basis and look at it through the lens of, like a newbie. What would someone see this step of the process as being, and could we even rename, rebrand even this step of the process as something, that makes it feel like it's like a big thing, right? I've got a client right now that has this proprietary piece of machinery, and they go pull lead out of the dirt. And he goes, we can't let people take pictures of it because it's really special in how we've set this up. And I said, well, here's a thought just from a marketing standpoint. When you take it out to the job site, you should put up almost like a curtain all the way around it, put your logos around it, and, put something literally that says, no photos required, proprietary process, equipment and process. And even though they probably never would think to take pictures, but you're building it up to say this is something special. Have you seen some of those kind of things in some of your work as well?
Well, I don't see any of that in the rail industry. In fact, I could tell you we're the only ones that would do anything like that. When we branded this particular line of safety products, we branded them as safety, quote-unquote, safety in your own hands. And the reason that we use that is because what happens is the guy working on the track is not part of the guy who runs the locomotive. Completely different organizations. And so the guy running the locomotive runs over the guy on the track because the organizations don't talk to each other and all that kind of stuff. And there are some safety products out there that require an electronic device on the locomotive, which puts the safety issue of the guy on the track in the hands of the locomotive guy, and they don't like that because they don't trust him. So we started branding around safety in your own hands, and it was very appealing to them because it's like, well, it's like everything a brand should be, right? It's emotional, right? It has a connection, and it resonates with people.
Mm-hmm. And it gives some control.
Right, exactly right.
Gives you
what
something
I call
to do.
Comfort food for your brand.
Yeah, neat. Hey, so what do you think CEOs or leaders need to be thinking of when looking at company culture? Because what I'm hearing is, like you mentioned in the rail industry, and we can kind of cookie cutter that into many industries, well, we just don't do it that way. Well, maybe that means that your culture needs to be tweaked, improved, freshened, but what are some thoughts around, readdressing a positive company culture?
Well, every culture needs to be tuned up and readdressed and aligned and refreshed, if you will, because they change over time. I mean, you could start. Startups are a perfect example, Mike. They hire exactly the people they want, that have exactly the right work ethic they want, the right intellect, the right education, all that kind of stuff. And a year later, it's a mess. From a cultural point of view, somehow people have snuck into that culture that don't fit in and that they didn't plan for, and so that's what happens in any company culture. If you have a culture today that you're very satisfied with values that you're very satisfied, I call them a culture by design, not default. Most organizations have cultures by default. They don't even know what they are.
It just happens.
They weren't. Yeah, that's right, but they weren't built by design. But let's assume that you have one that was built by design. That's great. Guarantee a year from now you need to refresh it, and the only way to do that is to do a lot of soul searching with the senior leaders and sit down and say, okay, here's the values that we think we have in the organization. Do we really have them? Are they really the values that we have now? They're the values we said we wanted a year ago, and we thought we had, but let's double check to make sure we have them. And you don't do that by looking on the boardroom wall to see what I call bumper sticker values you have up there. You do that by surveying people in a non-threatening way where the survey is designed to elicit truth and candor, as opposed to, if the manager comes up and says, well, what do you think? We have the value of good-hearted. Oh, yeah, boss, we've got that. So if you do it that way, and usually you should get some outside help, a good industrial psychologist who's really good at surveying and so forth, and then you check it out and find out, we don't really have that value. We had it a year ago, but somehow that has changed, and then you have to examine why has it changed. It's because we brought new people in that we didn't interview them for values. And then they bring their own set of values, and, if you have one employee, you don't have many problems. But if you have two employees, now you got all kinds of trouble because the second employee probably doesn't have the same values as the first, unless you screen for that in the hiring process.
And that presupposes that you already know what you need to have so that you know what to screen for, and then that's a whole other set of thoughts. As you were describing that, it made me think of a question. Do you remember a few years ago the big headline, United breaks guitars?
No, I can't say that I do.
It's a really interesting, and I'll pull it around to what United Airlines is going through even now recently with some of their PR blunders and whatnot. But I teach marketing for a few schools as well, and this has been a case study that we've used, and in fact, it became a Harvard Business Review case study, so it morphed into something just massive. But the short of it is this really small country western band. The lead singer for the band was flying on United, and he looks out and he sees the baggage handlers just mishandling his guitar, and literally he's like, that thing just got broken, I can tell. Gets off the plane, gets it, and it literally was broken, even though it was in a case. So he goes and asks for the help. They refuse, and all this, escalated all the way up to the top of everything, and they refused to do anything for it, even though they obviously broke his guitar. And so he then said, fine, I'm going to write a song about this. And you can just Google United breaks guitars, and you'll see all of the video, the song, the case study, and all that. But the point is, he wrote this song and said basically it was really tongue-in-cheek, hilarious, funny, United breaks guitars, and it really was comical, had a catchy little, hook, and got, just huge amount of hits. And I think in one of the press releases or even the case study talks about the massive hit that United took because of that, social campaign. And it really stemmed from their values of, we didn't listen to this person, and even though we knew we were in the wrong, we didn't take ownership of it. And then, of course, after all of this happened, they come out, we're so sorry, we're going to never let it happen again. And then look what's happening today. What do you see in larger corporations like this United example when a large blunder happens a handful of years ago? They say they will learn from it, and then they let the exact type of thing happen again.
Well, it's real easy. I mean, United's a perfect example, but it's very commonplace that they think they have a policy problem when they don't have a policy problem. So then they fix the policy, or they change the policy. Okay, from now on we'll have a policy. If somebody asks about a piece of baggage that was mishandled, we'll reimburse them something or other. They'll change the policy, but that's not the problem. The problem is, just to follow the United example for a minute, they do not value passengers. They do not value their customers. They view their customers as cattle. Put as many cattle as you can in the plane. Squid. That's why this woman that had the toddler she had to hold in her lap, even though she bought the seat for the toddler, they could squeeze one more passenger in by putting that toddler in her mother's lap. That's a cultural problem. That is not a policy, because as a matter of fact, United's policy is that over 2 years old, they have to have their own seat. So that was a culture problem where they get as many cattle as you can in the airplane, squeeze as much revenue as you can per pound, and that's what happens with most companies. Is they reach for the guy at the top who thinks there's a certain culture and a certain set of values in his company. He's just dumb as a post, and then when he finds out, oh man, they shouldn't have done that. Let's get the human resource people in here. Let's fix the policy. There's a policy problem, and that's the whole issue with most companies, Mike. Is they reach for the policy lever when their problem is a culture or values problem.
And in that example, their lower line, frontline employees think they're doing the right thing because they go down the checklist and say, oh, this complaint did not include a guitar or personal. Okay, no. Right. And in reality, that's not the point. The point is we value our people, all of that. And that's an excellent point where people would, if that employee were brought out on the carpet, they would say, I did the right thing. You told me to do X, Y, Z, and that didn't fall into these parameters. And they're like, you're missing the point. So that's really excellent.
Yeah, I mean, that's the problem with trying to run a business by policies. You can't do it because you cannot possibly think of every situation, every contingency, and write a policy for it. You have to run a business based on values.
Yeah, that's huge. Well, I think we could probably talk for about 4.5 more hours on just that one point alone. But give us a final thought, and then what's the best way that people can engage, reach out to you, read your current books, your upcoming books, and kind of follow along with some of your thought processes?
Well, I would say the easiest one is my personal website, which links to the company website. And my personal website is StephenLBlue.com. That's Stephen with a V. And that'll link to Miller Ingenuity. It's just easier to spell Stephen L. Blue than it is Miller Ingenuity, and back and forth, and they can see what the latest and the greatest is.
Excellent. Well, it was certainly a pleasure talking to you. I love some of the concepts we talked about because they're not commonly talked about in the industries we touched on. So thank you so much for your time today. It was wonderful getting to know you.
It's my pleasure. I enjoyed our conversation, Mike. Thanks so much.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneursradio.com.